Jax Richardson here, and welcome to the third part of episode 1 of the Almost Art original series, Interpretation. In this segment, using a piece of music as stimulus, poet Tom Nash composed and performed a very raw and emotive poem. If you enjoy what Tom created, please check out more of his work with the links below.
I guess I've always just been scared of you, not of you or what you do, but of the infallible you, the infamous you, the indestructible you that I've proceeded to construe. And I guess I've always just been shy with you. That character I do, the one who came for Christmases, that boy man you knew. He would lose loose characteristics of truth in the first instances of everyone's insistences that he was part of you and yours. An entire town peered round my inner doors before my footing was sure as to which floor would take my sapling souls toward them. Someone should have warned them that their presumptions would cause civil wars when this young man's soul finally found those doors. I had to find them torched and boarded. The keep away paint warded me away, and the catharsis of this abyss etched itself forever in my day-to-day. And I guess I've just been apart from you for too long. Head on into the throngs of step-parents, the conditions for this 4-year-old to partition men into fatherly moulds were far from perfect. To whose man-hand do I turn to hold whenever the semi-severed love of women was beyond repair? When the fearless fabric of feminine care was on the mend, I had no father figure on which to depend. And I guess I've always just been compared to you. The similarity too parabolically precise to be untrue. We are the cut curves that caress the cone, and we're hyperbolic, don't you know? We're two pieces, connected components, mirroring each other each and every moment. We're shown as two infinite bows, though, however we're sewn to each other. We're projectiles perpetually projected right through one another. And we follow this path as gravity undertakes its task of taking us both past the infinitely vast arc of patriarchal archetypes. Comparatively, though, there's this, an antithesis of our moral metamorphosis, clearest when we're with our nearest and most loved dearest. You act your way, I act mine. Our attitudes to blood-linked broods will never intertwine. You love your way, I love mine.
The first thing that I wanted to talk to you about was how you initially reacted when you first heard it. Is anything that immediately sprung to mind, an instant story, or anything that just first happened?
In terms of kind of a subject matter, not so much, but it reminded me really distinctly of a film score.
Okay.
And quite a distinct point as well, between kind of like a second inciting incident and when before a conclusion can start in a film. Normally an antagonist or the protagonist has some kind of self-fulfillment that they need to realise something before they can move on to concluding their troubles, as it were. And it reminded me really distinctly of just that point in a film, any film, where a main character has to kind of come to terms with something of their own in order to progress.
All right, okay. And how did you channel that into, the specific story that you ended up delivering?
Well, I've wanted to write something a bit more personal than I normally do. I'm actually quite evasive when it comes to subject matter. So this being kind of reminding me of a film just made me think more of something I didn't want to write about, something harder to deal with. So, and my dad and my family has just been in the back of my mind, and the music just kind of brought that to the forefront in terms of all the ideas that I've got pinging around. So it plucked an idea that I kind of already wanted to explore, and brought it to the forefront.
And was it, writing about something that's quite difficult, was it a cathartic experience, or was it?
It was,
still uncomfortable even at the point of performing it? How was that?
It is, and I can see it progressing more as well. And I'm always going to have this music in the back of my head when I do parts of it, or that, the main chunk that you've had today. So, it was certainly a cathartic experience. It was kind of jotting it down and just going. So there wasn't a lot of editing to it. It was definitely a haphazard one.
What would you say is your normal process for going about composing a piece? Would you decide on a specific story or theme first, or do you just hear maybe a few sentences and that gets the ball rolling, would you say?
Yeah, I think I normally will come out with a line. I work in a bar and I'm forever writing things on till receipts.
All right.
So you normally get a till receipt sized 2 or 3 lines from me of just an idea, something that I've seen or experienced. It's normally quite a throwaway line, but because I've written it and I've remembered it, I remember all the context and the build-up that led to me writing that. So from something quite what feels shallow when I write it down can come something a little more depthful.
Oh, right, yeah. And how would you say that the subject matter would affect your delivery of the piece? Like, would it affect the kind of phrasing you use, the body language, the hand gestures, all of that kind of?
Definitely. I think, like I said, I write evasively quite often, and I write quite a lot of promiscuous and deviant imagery. So when I'm performing those kind of things, there's a lot more kind of snarl and a little bit more edge to it. And obviously with something a bit more personal like this, there's a bit more eyes closed and there's just a bit more reflection in terms, because you're feeling something that you don't really want to have to explore that much. So subject matter definitely contributes to kind of performance.
And how important would you say the performance element of what you do is? I mean, obviously as a poet you're amazing with your words, and there's the composition of the words and all of that. How much is the physicality of what you do?
It's a big part of it. I've got a feature show coming up in March, and I've got quite a lot of time to play with, and I wanted to explore the different types of poetry. So with slam poetry, it's normally a little bit longer and much more about the performance poetry. So not only your words, but your actions and your performance draw an audience in and get them involved. Whereas slightly more kind of poetry proper, I suppose, is crafted for the page and to kind of be read individually. So when you write the 2 different types, when you're writing performance poetry, it's a massive part of it. I will even change words and where I'm going with images in order to be more palatable for the stage.
With your ability to sort of manipulate words in the way that you do, and you've already spoke about sort of the structure of a film. I mean, your skills as a writer, do you have any interest in moving into other areas of writing?
Massively. I mean, I studied linguistics at university, and I did also do film studies for the first couple of years, and I did a lot of creative writing that kind of crossed the boundaries of the two. So I've written a couple of screenplays that were, one was a joint project at uni and the other was just my own. So I've got them sitting there. I haven't visited them in quite a long time, but I could see myself writing again characters, although it's kind of on the back burner at the minute. I'd love to be able to write short stories, although I've never kind of sat down and tried to do it. But I do feel that, I mean, I'm quite early in my progression as a poet. There's still a lot to come in terms of formulating my processes, as we were talking about earlier. And I think hopefully as I progress in doing what I love doing at the moment, which is poetry, other facets to my ability will come forward. A lot of poets go on to write full shows that are kind of their plays as well as being kind of poetic verse. They're very interesting beasts. So yeah, I'd love to go and do one of them, maybe collaboratively to begin with.
Yeah. One of the things that I've been thinking about a lot recently, because I used to have a very narrow focus, and I was just, because I'm a guitar player primarily, that's what I did my degree in, and I was so focused on like the techniques of the guitar that I was dismissing other areas of music, other styles of music and other art forms. And the more that I speak to artists like yourself and people that are in other art forms, there is a huge amount of crossover in terms of the process. That certainly, even just today, seeing in a musical performance, a poetry performance and a dancer, how much acting goes into all of those things, and how, even if it's unconscious, that you're maybe pairing your hand gestures to a statement, that is a form of choreography, even if it's just one that's based on what you're naturally feeling. So the amount of crossover between art, I mean...
No, it's incredible. You see it at poetry nights all the time. I know a number of poets on the London circuit who, they'll play the ukulele and they've got poems that they've adapted from songs they've written. David Lee Morgan, Caroline Teague, they're both really good guitar players and ukulele players, and every now and again at an open mic they'll come and kind of do the little crossover for us. I've seen violins involved, so music, poetry, and kind of, as you mentioned, a choreographed, it's almost like a dance, I suppose. I do with my hands. I use a lot of this. Even when I'm talking to you now, I'm forever waving them around. So they're there to punctuate, which is what
dance does, I suppose. You know, it punctuates an emotion without having to say anything.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely love anything that isn't instantly clearly defined as one thing. So the second that you start to embrace other art forms, things can get very interesting, and people seem to be afraid of it. And everything needs to be so clearly defined now. That is horrible. But then and it means that we don't appreciate individuals, that we don't appreciate people like yourself, that you said you used to be involved in music quite as well, that you said.
Yeah, many years ago.
But you can also, that you have these other interests that they should I think they should all be explored. I think it'd be really interesting to see your version of a scene or of a screenplay.
But it's a really exciting time for me, as I said, because I've just started out and I'm getting to see so many established London poets and see how they've, you know, crossed different forms and have mastered their own. It's like a great vision of things to come, and I think there's a lot more people willing to be undefined in terms of their art form. So hopefully it will all filter through and you'll see a lot more of it as well.
Yeah, let's hope so. Well, thank you so much for coming down. I really appreciate it.
No, I really enjoyed it.
Fantastic to watch your performance.
Brilliant, thanks very much.
Cheers.
So that was Tom Nash. Definitely check out more of his work by following the links below. Also, make sure that you check out all the others that participated in today's experiment as well.